In a world where political enthusiasm often resembles a bad reality show, the scene was set for another glorious American campaign season. Billboards plastered with overly airbrushed faces loomed over busy intersections, blaring slogans that were about as substantial as the cotton candy at the county fair. As the sun dipped low, casting a golden glow on the cacophony of partisan fervor, one man stood at the edge of the chaos, disillusioned yet curiously amused. Meet Charlie Green, a political journalist whose cynicism was only rivaled by his penchant for irony. He'd spent years chronicling the absurdities of the political landscape, from ballooning campaign budgets to candidates who made more promises than a kid at a candy store. But today, he was here to witness something utterly ridiculous, the unveiling of a presidential candidate like no other, a clone. The rally was in full swing, complete with an inflatable chicken that towered over the crowd, clucking defiantly at the mundane platitudes being shouted from the stage. "Make America cluck again," the banner proclaimed, and Charlie couldn't help but chuckle as he scrolled through his phone, capturing the ridiculousness for his next article. Just when he thought he'd seen it all, the crowd erupted into a frenzy as the main event approached. "Ladies and gentlemen," boomed a voice from the stage, cutting through the laughter and clucking, "I present to you the future of American leadership, Bill 2.0. The lights dimmed, and the audience hushed. A figure emerged, looking exactly like the late William "Bill" Harrison, the charismatic presidential candidate who'd captivated the nation 2 decades ago but had ultimately lost to a rival whose only notable policy was a tax on high fives. Bill 2.0 strutted onto the stage, every bit the political savant, only he was made in a lab rather than from a lifetime of experience. "What in the name of all that's holy?" Charlie muttered, unable to tear his eyes away from the spectacle. The crowd erupted into cheers, and for a moment, the absurdity of it all washed over him like a wave of nostalgia mixed with disbelief. Here was a man who was not a man at all, but a science experiment on a mission to capture the hearts of voters. As Bill 2.0 launched into a rehearsed speech filled with old catchphrases and cringe-worthy humor, Charlie felt a familiar twinge in his gut. He was a journalist, trained to critique, to analyze. Yet, in the midst of this bizarre event, he felt an unexpected pull. Was there something genuine in this cloned simulacrum? The initial thrill of the crowd began to shift as Bill 2.0 stumbled over a question about healthcare reform, a moment that turned from laughable to oddly poignant. "I believe in health. And care," he declared, his synthetic charm faltering. The audience shifted, caught between the novelty of a clone and the reality that he might not have a clue what he was talking about. Charlie's mind raced. Was this the future of politics? A world where charisma could be manufactured, where the human experience could be replicated but never truly experienced? He scribbled notes furiously, his mind swirling with ethical quandaries. And so began the most absurd election cycle Charlie had ever witnessed. The days that followed were a whirlwind of campaign events, each more ridiculous than the last. Charlie tagged along as Bill 2.0 made the rounds, attending town halls, barbecues, and even a bizarre fundraiser featuring a hot dog eating contest. The media coverage was relentless, with commentators debating the moral implications of voting for a clone. "Can a clone understand the struggles of the American people?" a talking head asked, framing the debate around identity and leadership. Charlie watched as pundits argued over whether Bill 2.0 possessed the essence of what made someone a true leader or if he was simply an elaborate joke. Meanwhile, Bill 2.0 proved to be a curious mix of charm and confusion. During a televised debate, he faced off against the incumbent president, who, despite his lackluster performance in office, managed to exude a certain human warmth. Bill 2.0, however, fell flat. His rehearsed answers crumbled under the pressure, and as he choked on a question about foreign policy, Charlie couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. The media frenzy escalated. Memes began to circulate, depicting Bill 2.0 as a puppet candidate, a hollow shell with nothing but programmed responses. Charlie found himself captivated, not just by the spectacle, but by the internal struggle that emerged within the clone. As the days turned into weeks, the question became less about whether he could win and more about whether he should point. One afternoon, Charlie joined Bill 2.0 on a visit to the grave of the original Bill Harrison. The atmosphere was heavy with an odd mixture of reverence and existential dread. As they stood in silence, the clone placed a hand on the gravestone, an act that felt deeply symbolic. "What would you do?" Bill 2.0 whispered, his voice tinged with uncertainty. In that moment, Charlie realized that perhaps the clone was more human than anyone had anticipated. Bill 2.0 was navigating the complexities of existence, grappling with the weight of a legacy he could never truly own. It was a poignant reflection of a society increasingly obsessed with image over substance. As election day approached, the atmosphere grew tense. A grassroots movement emerged, rallying against the idea of a cloned candidate, arguing that leadership required lived experience, not a manufactured persona. The debate raged on social media, with hashtags like #NotMyClone and Clones for Change sparking heated discussions. On the night before the election, Charlie found himself in a crowded bar, surrounded by a mix of supporters and detractors. The air buzzed with anticipation and skepticism. As he listened to the arguments, he felt a surge of clarity. It wasn't just about Bill 2.0, it was about the state of politics itself, about how far the nation had strayed from genuine leadership. The next day, as the polls opened, the streets were filled with a strange energy. Charlie made his way to the polling station, his heart racing with a mix of anxiety and excitement. The election was more than just a vote, it was a referendum on identity, authenticity, and what it meant to lead in a rapidly changing world. As the results came in, the atmosphere shifted from anxious anticipation to sheer chaos. Bill 2.0 had emerged victorious by a narrow margin, his victory both celebrated and contested. The nation was in uproar, debates flaring on every channel. Charlie watched as pundits dissected the implications of a cloned president, some calling it a breakthrough, others a travesty. In the midst of it all, Bill 2.0 took to the stage for his victory speech, his synthetic charisma shining through the chaos. "Thank you, America. Together, we'll embark on a journey of leadership and innovation." The crowd erupted, some cheering, others shaking their heads in disbelief. As Charlie reflected on the absurdity of it all, he found himself grappling with his own perspective. Had he been too quick to dismiss Bill 2.0? Could a clone truly lead, or was he simply a product of society's desire for an image over substance? The story closed with Charlie contemplating the future. The nation had elected a clone, but in a way, hadn't they also elected a mirror? A reflection of their own desires and fears? As he left the rally, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that the discussion surrounding identity and leadership would continue, long after the clones had faded from the headlines. And in a final twist of irony, as Bill 2.0 proposed a Clone Appreciation Day to celebrate diversity in leadership, Charlie couldn't help but chuckle. The line between the absurd and the profound had blurred yet again, leaving him with a story that was anything but ordinary. In a world of clones and chaos, perhaps the greatest lesson was that the heart of leadership, whether original or replicated, was still beating, struggling, adapting, and ultimately striving to connect. In the days that followed Bill 2.0's surprising electoral victory, the nation found itself in a state of bemused fascination. News outlets buzzed with a mixture of disbelief and curiosity as they dissected the implications of a cloned president. In cafes, barbershops, and living rooms across America, discussions centered around the idea of leadership, authenticity, and the very nature of what it meant to be human in a world increasingly dominated by technology. Charlie Green, now more than just a skeptical observer, had morphed into an unlikely chronicler of this new political reality. He had never anticipated the role he would play in this surreal saga, but here he was, navigating the intricate dance of journalism in the age of clones. His articles were a blend of humor, satire, and genuine inquiry, exploring the ethical dilemmas of cloning in a way that resonated with an audience grappling with their own uncertainties. One afternoon, Charlie found himself seated in a trendy cafe, a laptop open in front of him, as he typed furiously. Around him, conversations swirled, snippets of debate punctuating the air. "Can we trust a leader who's a replica?" a woman at the next table asked. "I mean, isn't leadership about experience?" Her friend nodded vigorously, and Charlie couldn't help but eavesdrop, intrigued by how the public wrestled with this profound question. He paused to sip his coffee, letting the warmth wash over him. The memory of Bill 2.0's inaugural speech flooded back, a blend of charm and awkwardness, like a high schooler nervously delivering a class presentation. Yet, it was in those moments of vulnerability that Charlie had seen a flicker of something real. The clone, despite his origins, was attempting to forge a path that was undeniably human. As the days turned into weeks, Bill 2.0's administration launched initiatives that seemed to straddle the line between groundbreaking and ridiculous. His team introduced Clone Appreciation Day as a national holiday, a day for citizens to celebrate diversity in leadership, real or replicated. The day included a bizarre mix of parades, educational panels, and, of course, a hot dog eating contest, all designed to foster a sense of unity, even if it felt absurd. Charlie found himself both amused and bewildered, capturing every moment with a wry sense of humor. While the celebrations unfolded, not everyone was on board. A faction called Real Voters for Real Leaders emerged, rallying against what they perceived as a dangerous precedent. Their protests gained traction, drawing crowds that brandished signs reading, "No more clones," and "Lead with heart, not science." Charlie attended a rally, notebook in hand, determined to understand the core of their discontent. The atmosphere was charged, filled with passionate speeches and fervent chants. As Charlie listened, he recognized the underlying fear, the anxiety of losing authenticity in leadership. The protesters articulated their belief that true leadership came from lived experience, from a depth of understanding that could not be replicated in a lab. Charlie felt their frustration, their hope for a world where leaders were rooted in the very human condition, where imperfections could lead to genuine connection. After the rally, he decided to interview some of the protesters. One woman, Sarah, stood out, a teacher with a fierce passion for education and an unwavering belief in the power of real human experience. "We need leaders who have faced challenges, who know what it's like to struggle," she insisted, her voice firm. "How can we trust someone who's never lived through anything?" Charlie could see her point, the fear that the essence of humanity could be lost amidst the scientific marvels of the modern world. As the weeks rolled on, Charlie found himself increasingly entangled in the narrative, developing an unexpected rapport with Bill 2.0. The clone, eager to connect with the public, had made a point of engaging with journalists, and Charlie had become one of his go-to contacts. Their conversations were both enlightening and hilarious, often punctuated by Bill 2.0's earnest attempts at humor that sometimes fell flat. One day, they met for coffee, a setting Charlie had never imagined would be a staple of his work. Bill 2.0 entered the cafe, his presence commanding yet oddly relatable. He wore a button-up shirt emblazoned with the slogan, "Cloning for Change," which only added to the absurdity. As they settled into a corner booth, Charlie couldn't resist starting with a joke. "So, how does it feel to be the first president who can't actually be a natural-born citizen?" Bill 2.0 laughed, a genuine sound that cut through the tension. "You know, I've thought about that a lot. I guess I'm more of a naturally cloned citizen." The two shared a hearty laugh, and Charlie felt the barriers between them dissolve, if only for a moment. Their conversation shifted to the criticisms Bill faced. "I get it, really. It's hard for people to trust me," he admitted, his expression turning serious. "But I want to show them that I can lead. I may not have lived through all the struggles, but I'm here to learn. Isn't that what leadership is about?" Charlie contemplated this, recognizing the truth in the clone's words. The willingness to learn, to adapt, was a crucial aspect of leadership, whether biological or synthetic. "But can a leader be effective without that depth of experience?" he asked, probing gently. Bill 2.0 leaned back, considering the question. "Maybe. Maybe it's about collaboration. Surrounding myself with people who have the experience I lack. I may be a clone, but I can still create a team that understands what it means to lead with heart." Their dialogue continued, blending humor with deep reflection. Charlie realized that beneath the bizarre veneer of a cloned candidate, there was a man, albeit a manufactured one, striving to connect with the world in an authentic way. As summer turned to fall, the political landscape remained tumultuous. Public opinion shifted back and forth like a pendulum, swinging between support for Bill 2.0 and fervent opposition from those who feared the implications of a cloned leader. The debates grew fiercer, especially as the administration rolled out more policies that aimed to address pressing social issues. One evening, the administration held a town hall meeting aimed at fostering dialogue with the public. Charlie attended, armed with his notepad, eager to witness firsthand how Bill 2.0 would navigate the minefield of public scrutiny. The room buzzed with anticipation as the clone took the stage, flanked by advisors who whispered last-minute strategies in his ear. "Thank you all for being here," Bill 2.0 began, his tone earnest. "I know I'm not your typical candidate, and I appreciate your willingness to engage with me." He launched into a speech that acknowledged the mixed feelings many had about his leadership, framing it as an opportunity for growth and understanding. As he spoke, the audience reacted with a blend of applause and skepticism. Charlie noticed the faces in the crowd, some nodding along, others crossing their arms, their brows furrowed in doubt. It was clear that the path forward would not be easy, but Bill 2.0's willingness to face the challenge head-on was commendable. The Q&A session that followed was electric. Hands shot up as citizens voiced their concerns, some demanding to know how a clone could possibly understand issues like healthcare, poverty, and education. Bill 2.0 fielded questions with a mix of sincerity and humor, often leaning into the absurdity of his situation. "I might not have lived through the Great Recession," he quipped, "but I've read a lot about it. And you know what? I can promise to listen to the experts, those of you who've actually been through it." Charlie watched as the atmosphere in the room began to shift. Laughter broke the tension, and the audience seemed to warm up, if only slightly. Bill 2.0's charm was undeniable, and there was a sense that he was genuinely trying to connect with those he sought to lead. But as the session progressed, a sense of unease still lingered. While some were swayed by his humor and openness, others remained steadfast in their opposition, unwilling to overlook the fundamental questions surrounding his legitimacy as a leader. Charlie couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment, the realization that this was more than just a political debate, it was a reflection of society's fears and hopes. As the town hall wrapped up, Bill 2.0 thanked the audience, his smile wide despite the mixed reactions. Charlie felt a swell of admiration for the clone's resilience. It was one thing to have charisma and charm, but it took courage to face the public in such a raw and vulnerable way. Walking back to his car, Charlie couldn't shake the feeling that they were living through a pivotal moment in history. The conversation surrounding cloning and leadership was not just about Bill 2.0, it was about what it meant to lead in a world where the lines between real and artificial were increasingly blurred. In the weeks that followed, Charlie's articles gained traction, resonating with readers who were grappling with similar questions. He found himself receiving messages from people across the country, each sharing their thoughts and experiences regarding leadership and identity. The conversation sparked by Bill 2.0's candidacy had ignited a dialogue that transcended political boundaries, weaving through communities in unexpected ways. One night, while scrolling through his social media, Charlie stumbled upon a video that had gone viral, a heartfelt message from a young girl who had been following the election. "I don't care if he's a clone or not," she said, her voice earnest. "He's trying, and that's what matters. Maybe we should all try harder to understand each other." Charlie felt a lump in his throat. Here was a reminder that, despite the chaos and confusion, the essence of connection remained at the core of humanity. Whether in a coffee shop or a town hall, whether a clone or a human, the desire for understanding and compassion was universal. As the election cycle continued, Bill 2.0 navigated the complexities of leadership with a blend of humor and earnestness. He implemented policies that aimed to tackle education reform and healthcare access, often seeking input from those who had lived through the very issues he was addressing. The administration became a collaborative effort, a patchwork of perspectives that allowed Bill 2.0 to learn and adapt, slowly forging a new kind of leadership. One evening, Charlie attended a dinner hosted by the administration, a gathering designed to promote dialogue among diverse community leaders. The atmosphere was charged, a mix of anticipation and skepticism. As guests mingled, Charlie observed the interactions, noting how Bill 2.0 moved through the room, engaging with everyone from local teachers to healthcare professionals. When it was time for dinner, Charlie found himself seated next to Bill 2.0. "So, what do you really think?" the clone asked, his tone light yet probing. "Are you ready to accept me as your president?" Charlie chuckled, appreciating the candor. "You know, it's complicated. I think you're doing something unique, but there are still a lot of people who feel uneasy about the whole thing." Bill nodded thoughtfully. "I get that. But I believe that if we keep talking, if we keep trying to connect, we can find common ground. Clones or not, we're all in this together." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, weaving through topics of leadership, community, and the ever-elusive concept of authenticity. Charlie found himself increasingly drawn to the clone's determination to bridge gaps, even as the world around them felt divided. As dessert was served, a group of guests began to discuss the upcoming Clone Appreciation Day. The atmosphere turned festive, with laughter and shared stories. Charlie realized that in this strange new world, moments of joy and connection could still flourish, even amidst the chaos. The next day, as preparations for Clone Appreciation Day began, the media buzzed with excitement. Bill 2.0 had planned a series of events that would highlight not just his story but the stories of those who had supported him throughout his journey. On the day itself, the streets were filled with colorful banners, balloons, and enthusiastic crowds. Charlie wandered through the festivities, taking in the sights and sounds, a blend of carnival and town hall meeting. It was all remarkably surreal. Bill 2.0 took the stage to deliver his address, his presence both commanding and approachable. "Today is a celebration of leadership in all its forms," he began, a wide smile on his face. "We are here to honor the unique stories that shape our communities, whether they come from a lab or a lifetime of experiences." The crowd erupted into applause, and Charlie felt a sense of warmth wash over him. Perhaps there was something profound in this celebration, a recognition that leadership could take many shapes and forms. As the day unfolded, Charlie observed the interactions between Bill 2.0 and the citizens, noting how the clone had managed to break down barriers, fostering dialogue that felt genuine. The laughter, the shared stories, it was a reminder that even in a world of clones, the essence of humanity thrived. Later, as the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Charlie found himself reflecting on the journey he had taken. This strange chapter in American politics had revealed unexpected truths, forcing society to confront its fears and hopes. In the end, the question of authenticity remained, but perhaps it had shifted to a broader understanding of connection. As the festivities wound down, Charlie stood at the edge of the crowd, watching Bill 2.0 engage with constituents, laughter echoing through the air. There was something remarkable about it all, an acknowledgement that despite the absurdity of a cloned leader, the desire for connection, understanding, and genuine leadership was very much alive. And so, in a world teetering on the edge of absurdity and reality, Charlie realized that the journey was far from over. The discussion sparked by Bill 2.0's candidacy would continue to ripple through society, challenging perceptions of what it meant to lead. Perhaps, in the end, it wasn't about whether Bill was a clone or not, it was about the willingness to engage, to learn, and to connect on a human level. As he walked away from the celebration, Charlie felt a sense of hope. The path ahead might still be fraught with challenges, but within the laughter and the conversations lay the possibility for change, change that came not just from leaders, but from the very people they served. And that, he thought with a smile, was something worth celebrating.